right, listeners. Well, I have been looking forward to this one. I've been admiring this lady from afar. I've been following her success, very inspiring. Miss Harmony Brown, how you doing, Harmony?
Hi there, Preston. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am. This is well. I look forward to all the podcasts, but I really look forward to this one because you have such an inspiring story, and I listened to your podcast you did with Inspector Joe, and after that, I'm like, I immediately want to go do stuff in my business to improve it. So I'm hoping we can have that same effect on anybody else that's listening to it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, for the three people who don't know who you are, give us a little background, who you are, where you're from, and how did you get into the home inspection business? Because not too many of us, when I was in high school, I didn't even know what a home inspector was. So,
right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm Harmony Brown. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I got started in home inspections really by accident. I was in college. I was struggling to pick a major. I was trying to find kind of my path and way. And I knew I wanted to find something that I would love to do, but I just didn't know what that would actually be. And so I couldn't pick a major. And I was really that student, right, that was struggling in school, fifth year college person. And I said, you know what, I got to get serious about getting somewhere. And so but I needed more time. So I thought, hey, you know what, I'll go join the Navy. That'll be great. I'll get time there. That didn't work out. I ended up not getting to get into an officer program that I wanted to get into. And so I'm sitting here, failing at getting jobs, failing at getting into the military, failing at completing college. And I'm really kind of down on my luck here, right? And I'm at this stage when I'm like 22, 23 years old or something at this point. And I said, you know what, let me go online and do some research. And so I go online and I start looking at how do you pick a career, like just doing searches, right? Like, how do you find something that you'll love? And I basically ran across a book, it was an ebook, and he was like sitting there saying, like, here's the way to find a passion. And he's taking me through this process. And lo and behold, I won't go into all the specifics, but lo and behold, he's like, what do you like watching on TV? What are things you like doing in your free time? What, trying to figure out the things that you like to do when there's no money involved. Because a lot of people, right, don't realize that the things that you like doing when there's no money are probably the things you're actually going to do well when you try to put money to it, right?
Kind of like a Myers-Briggs type sort of thing. Yeah.
Correct. And so ultimately I was like, I really like houses. And I would have never guessed that, but I really did. And so that led to, okay, well, what kind of jobs are there in houses? Well, there's real estate jobs. Here are all the real estate jobs. And I'm going through and looking at realtor, and I'm looking at mortgage, I'm looking at appraisal. And these are all coming before inspections, right? And for one reason or another, these are all not really working. I'm like, I can't really be a realtor because I can't really wait on commission. I need money now, whatever. And inspections, was something I was like, I don't know anything about inspections. Like, what is it that they do? And the cool thing about this, I didn't think of this myself, but the cool thing about this is the guy in the ebook, he's like, the biggest thing that people never do is they never go and talk to the people that do that job. So get on the phone, call home inspectors in this case, or call appraisers, call realtors, and ask them what their day-to-day is like. And then see if you would like to do the things that they do every day, right? Because if you don't like doing the things that mortgage people do, then maybe you shouldn't pick that as a career. It's genius. It's so simple.
So many lawyers fall into that. They think they want to be a lawyer until they actually become a lawyer. But go ahead.
Exactly. No, exactly right. And so I ended up calling the inspector, and I was literally talking to like some of the nicest guys, and they're telling me what they do every day. And they would literally say, oh, I get up in the morning and I go to realtor offices, and sitting there and I'm trying to pitch my service to them. I'm dropping off, my, pamphlets and flyers, and I'm, giving them my number and my card and saying, hey, I'm happy to do an inspection for you. And then they were literally telling me that like in the afternoon, I'll go out and hopefully have an inspection. And I went, wait a minute. So you have to go get the work, and they were like, yeah, that's how it works. And I go, but how are you supposed to be able to do both? Like that doesn't, like it literally made no sense to me. I go, but that's too hard because you have to learn all this stuff about houses, but then you have to get all the work. And they were like, well, it'd be great to, and one guy, one of the gentlemen I was talking to, I won't say his name because he's still a competitor in my market, but he was like, it would be great if someone would just give it to me, but it doesn't work that way. And I went, would you want someone to give it to you? And he was like, yeah. I was like, absolutely, of course. And I was like, dude, that's it. Like that, I was like, that's it. That's gonna be my thing. I'm gonna get the work. And seemed easy. Like I was like, oh, this will be no problem. I'll go ahead.
Well, a little more to it, but you certainly figured it out. But I imagine it wasn't as easy as you thought in the beginning.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. But I got there.
So, all right. So you found out you wanted to do this. What, and you said this, I read a little bit on your, I did a little low end stalking there. 10 years ago, it's the story of a girl 10 years ago who found out. So what were your first steps? And now this was, you said you're from Tulsa, but this was in Dallas, because you're kind of based out of Dallas, right? I know you're in different markets now, but so was this all going down in Dallas, and what were your first steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was absolutely going down in Dallas. My first steps were, number one, trying to understand what it is that the home inspector needed, right? Because it's really taking the time to truly understand where that need is. And it seems simple, oh, just get them jobs. Yeah, but it's actually not that simple, because inspectors, like, they want to keep a certain radius around their area, right? They want to serve a certain area, they can do certain homes, they can do certain services. So I started out with that. Then I went to the other side and I said, okay, these realtors, how are they making the decision on how they're hiring inspectors?
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time really kind of interviewing and listening to realtors that talk to me about, here are the things, right, that are important to us, right? Like speed of being able to get out to an inspection, of course, is like one key thing that everyone kind of knows now. But back then, 10 years ago, like I didn't feel like that information was easy to find and understand without me needing to do the research myself. So I was taking all of the things that I was hearing and I was trying to combine them together, right? It took me 15 months to get this right and really get my first customer, because I had no sales experience, no marketing experience, like no contacts, right? So and I'm honestly not the sharpest tool in the shed. So
please.
Pretty
sharp, I think, but
well, you put it all together, and I bring it together, and I'm like, all right, I think I can do this. Like I think I can combine with ease of report understanding, talking to clients, like, what do they actually need these reports for, and all these things. And that's how I got started, was really just truly understanding both sides of that transaction.
So this was around 2011-ish?
Yeah, this is 2011.
Give or take.
Right.
Okay, so tell us, all right, so it took you about 15 months to kind of figure it out. How did you get that first customer, and did you hire the home inspector, and how did you go about marketing and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had to build my own website because I really had no money, right? So I'm sitting, and I had business cards. I ended up getting my first client because they actually found my website. I literally, it was a new construction home here in North Texas. And they literally called, I answered, and they're like, hey, I need an inspection. And I went, okay, great. And they're like, what's it going to cost? I had no idea what to even say. So I just threw out a number. I was like, $96.
Oh, man.
And they were like, sold. And I was like, awesome. And so, of course, the guys that I had called, right, I asked them, I said, if I bring you a job, will you do it? And like, yeah, absolutely. So I had inspectors to call. So I had 3 guys, that I had relationship with. Now, they hadn't heard from me in over a year because I hadn't gotten any jobs for them. But I called them. I go, hey, can you go out and do an inspection for me? And they're like, yeah, what's the price? And I go, $96. And they're like, okay, that's a little cheap, but I'll give you the first one at that. So I ended up making no money. I, give the whole fee to the inspector, but it's great. I went out there, I met the client, I met the inspector, and I'm understanding and learning what's going on. And so that became a huge learning point for me. And I realized that I could spend all my time, I was Uber driving and part-time. I was selling books online, like, how are you surviving? I'm selling books online. Like I'd go to garage sales on the weekends, and then I put them on Amazon and sell them and eBay and stuff. So like, that's how I was surviving until I could get this off the ground. And so that became the way that I would do it. I would always, so like 4 months later, I get my second client, and my second client happens to be an investor this time, still found me on my website again. Right. And so go out there again, inspector, myself together, meet with client, talk to client, and she ended up loving us. She loved the service. She loved us. And she used us again for her second house. And then she's like, hey, I'm a part of a group of women who do real estate investing. Let me help you get your name out. It wasn't actually a group of women. It was actually just a group of investors. Sorry. She's a part of a group of investors. And she goes, let me get your name out here because I love your energy. I love your enthusiasm. And I was this like hungry kid that was like, I will answer my phone at 3 a.m. if you need me, like anything you need, like I will do it. Like, just let me, serve you. And it worked. I mean, it really worked. I mean, I was just hungry, driven, insanely committed, to doing anything that I could to give high customer service. And honestly, like it was a great product. It was a really great product. Like we put out a really great product. And so it just kind of slowly grew, one a
Awesome.
week, a day.
So you hooked up with some investors early on, and I want to give some people some perspective who aren't familiar with your story. I want to back up to what you're saying, but I want just a snapshot now. How, if it's all right, and if you don't feel comfortable saying something, that's fine. How many inspectors do you have today? How big is your company? How many markets? Gross income, but if you don't feel, some people don't feel comfortable saying that, and that's I don't want you to say anything you're not comfortable. But I know some people are listening to it like, how did where's this going?
Yeah.
I think what you're saying now will be so much more if you know like where you are now. So can you give us a snapshot of where you are now, and then we'll go back to that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we ended the year last year, which of course was what, just last month-ish. We 55 inspectors throughout Texas is what we are right now. We've got, but we're not just an inspection company. That's still the largest part of our business, but we've grown into being an engineering company. We're an environmental company, and we also do handyman and pest control as well. So overall, Greenworks has 85 total, technicians on the field between engineers and handyman and pest guys, and so we're really trying to cover all of Texas. So we're in the major markets, right? We're in Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas Fort Worth right now, and then we're in West Texas. We're going to go into a few more mid-cap small markets this year, just to kind of keep our footprint here in Texas, and serving our realtors, because we are, I'll get into the specifics of how we like to network, and I'll tell you guys how we've been able to grow. But we spent the first 6 years, year 1 through 6, it was just employing my first inspector and growing one inspector at a time. So the first 6 years, Greenworks only had 5 inspectors. Like we hired our 6th inspector at the very end of the 6th year. So I don't even count that. We only have 5 inspectors in 6 years of work, right?
Right.
But we have built such a core team of amazing inspectors. And actually, 3 of them are still with me right now. Like we had built such a core good team that at that point, the minute we wanted to expand and grow, we were able to really scale. So every one of our inspectors became really amazing trainers. They were able to build out their own teams. And so what happens is that you're able to kind of compound your growth very quickly. We went from like 5, then we went to 15, then we went from 15 to 33 went to 55, right? So like you're able to exponentially grow once you get certain things in place, and once that business is built for the scaling factor. It's actually not that difficult if that's what someone's looking to do.
Awesome. I have so many questions in so many different directions. It's like I'm like a kid with the Christmas wish book. Like I want to ask everything. So you had 6 inspectors up for the first the 6 years, and then obviously you grew exponentially since then. And then I struggle with this too, like growing more in the inspection business and other markets, but you've also gone the not the other way, but other services, because obviously doing home inspections lends itself to, I mean, I hate to say this, but it's true, lead generation for some other types of business like environmental and pest control and handyman and all that. So what was your journey, and how do you evaluate that today? Like, at Greenworks, I don't want to know where the name came from. But like, we want to grow. So how do we, what's your thoughts? Like, I guess you evaluate the return, do we want to go into another market, expand more in this market, both? I mean, how do you process that, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. It really comes down to like, what is the overall mission of your business? Like, what do you want to build? I always tell people like work backwards. like for us, like we work backwards, right? So we
Right.
decide, here's who we want to be in the industry. Here's what we want to be on the planet. Like, so we know what we want to be. And then we say, okay, what fits into that overall vision, right? And essentially for us, we have a intention to build this ecosystem, right? To where someone can come into Greenworks as a client and we can serve them anywhere that they need like to be served and provide solutions to them all the way around, right? So we're really intentionally trying to become kind of a 360 solutions company, if you will. That's our long-term goal. And that's not just for the client, but that's also for our realtors, because we're listening to the needs of like what's going on like in the world, like where are buyers headed, like what are they going to be needing, and we're trying to anticipate where we feel things are headed, right?
Right, kind of like you're skating to where the puck's going to go, not where it was.
Correct. Exactly right. Exactly right. And we see the future being the same way that like home automation, the same way that Uber Eats, right? Like everything has become instant gratification, like that we're kind of in an instant gratification world. That's not going anywhere, right? And so what's happening now is from our perspective at Greenworks is we're going, okay, people want instant gratification. So they want quality and they want it fast. Right? No one wants to sit around and wait 2 weeks for your home inspection. I'm sorry, if it takes 2 weeks, that's just too long. You're going to lose out on opportunities because realtors and buyers and sellers, they don't have that kind of time. Once that decision has been made that they're going to go into escrow together, right? So like that's that. So we accept that and we understand that, which is exactly why we've had to add so many inspectors, because we're constantly trying to meet this time demand need, right? But also providing that quality at the same time. So that's one aspect. But then the other aspect is, okay, but what is also happening in kind of what I call it the first world? Like what's happening in the first world is we're very in tune to our experiences, right? So me as a consumer, it's not good enough that you just, for instance, if I want to go buy a car tomorrow, you can sell me a great car and you can sell me a great car at a great price, but that's really not good enough. You can't just sell me a great car at a great price. You also have to provide me a great experience. Because if you don't provide me a great experience, if it was terrible, if it was awful going into the dealership, you harassed me the whole time, you ignored me, I spent 3 days in here buying the car, I don't care how good of a deal I got, I'm still going to walk away feeling completely like that sucked, right? So the experience is becoming such a big part of the way we're making our purchases, right? And so we're saying, hey, how do we become a part of that experience that allows it to be easy, right? Because we want ease, we want convenience, we want quality, but we want everything. Right. And ultimately, Greenworks is just trying to be a part of that.
No, I love it. I love it. So let me ask you this: at what point, like, I'll go back to you. You were kind of like with 6 inspectors, and I'm assuming just doing home inspections for like the first 6 years. And I know, you know, part of it is you're brilliant, but was there books or what? I mean, like for listeners out there, if they want to start to embrace, you know, having a great experience or expanding, are there any books or, I mean, what helped you with your, I know it's a mindset thing, but then you got to put into action. Are there any books or what at year 6? I mean, I imagine you have been cultivating it in your mind for a while, but is there any books or something that inspired you or that helps? Does that make sense?
No, that's great. Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So yes, and yes, and yes to all of that, right? Like I have spent a lot of time on personal development. Like I have no problem saying like from where I was and the beliefs and the mindset that I had to like where I am now, like completely night and day. Like I would spend, like lots of people spend time like trying to read like strategy books and like techniques and like marketing and sales book. And that's wonderful and that's nice. But you can have all that knowledge, but if you cannot apply it because your mindset has limiting beliefs,
right,
you will never take action on the knowledge that you have. And that's why I say I am really not the smartest person. But I am an amazing executor. Like I will admit, like I am in the top % of executors because I would rather execute a few simple like strategies, right? And stay consistent because that's always it. Can you execute and can you consistently do it? Because if you can't consistently produce a great service, at some, you're capping yourself right then and there. So books that I read, Think and Grow Rich, unquestionably like one of like the most powerful, life-changing books I've ever
Napoleon
read.
Hill. Yeah.
It's just so true, right? And that book for me is like, that's just like a basic. It's like don't call yourself an entrepreneur and don't be in business if you have not read Think and Grow Rich, because at some point at some point that's got to become a part of like the fiber of who you are, and understanding that the things that you're doing and the way that you're growing a business. And I especially love this in the home inspection community. The home inspection community has such kind, wonderful people in it that I really mean that. Like, if you really compare our industry to other industries, like, we're some of the kindest, nicest people, and it's very, very like family oriented, right? And very community driven. And we all really have, I mean, the people that I've met, like, you have a lot of really good hearts and a lot of people who really want to do really good work. And so, that being so, all it is taking that and saying, okay, how do I go and I expand my vision for what I want to have in my life? Who am I going to help? Right? Like who are the families that are being helped by this? Like, every time you employ someone, like every time you give someone an opportunity, every single time that you are providing quality service to clients, like you're helping everyone, right? Because it's not just about you and your inspection company putting money in your pocket. It's not that simple. Like, there's more to it than that. And I think I just genuinely have a mindset and a belief that, like, if we continue to do well and we continue to set a good example and we continue to show, right, like how great like home inspectors are and like how amazing our industry is as a whole, and how much we can help people during, I mean, it's the biggest purchase of their life.
Oh yeah. It's and it's the biggest. I always tell people, it's, if you think about most people, their net worth, like what they're worth, 90% of it's probably their home. I mean, from 90% of the people. And it's the American dream. And I like being a small part of that dream, and I love it. I tell them, people, like, you should feel proud of what you do every day. It's pretty awesome. Hey guys, thanks for listening. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. I hope you're getting value out of it. I'm sponsoring, I guess, myself. I'm not really selling anything, but hey man, I thought I'd just tell you about, I do a little art on the side, PrestonSandlin.com. Check it out if you got some time. Kind of do some cool looking stuff, I think, but I understand that art is subjective. Also, I'll follow you back if you follow me on TikTok. I'm Inspector Crazy Pants. I'm Inspector Crazy Pants on Instagram. We have two on Instagram, Inspector Crazy Pants and Home Inspection Carolina. We are also, Home Inspection Carolina on Facebook, and you can check out our website, homeinspectioncarolina.com. But you guys follow me, I'll follow you back. Comment, I'll try to comment back. I think it helps everybody's algorithm. So without further ado, I'll let you get back to the podcast. I just want to say I appreciate you listening, and hopefully we'll see each other sometime at a conference. Thanks a lot. Well, let me ask you this, Harmony. Your company has grown astronomically. You've gone verticals and horizontal, which is fantastic. Now we're going into almost 2 years now of this COVID thing. And when it hit, man, it was like, in some markets you couldn't show houses and stuff. Obviously it's a lot different now, but how has COVID changed the way you guys, or has it, the way you guys do business and the way you guys market your business?
Absolutely. I think for us, we really got clear about not taking for granted the fact that we, number one, have clients and that we have buyers. It was like a moment of like, oh my word, this can technically go away, like at any moment, right? Like, we are so reliant on the real estate transaction to operate. Oh yeah, I was wondering if my teacher certificate was still active. Go back. Exactly. So we kind of went, that's a little scary. It's really hard. It's really stressful to only depend on the real estate transaction, especially when, we have the burden of trying to feed as many mouths as we were trying to feed. We're going, man, we just want some relief. on how much we depend on the real estate transaction. So that's why we have gone into adding so many different services, because the more we diversify ourselves, it allows us to breathe a little easier, right? And we're trying to get from like being like where we were, like 100% dependent on a home inspection. Like we're trying to see that be more like 50-50, right? Can we get to 50-50, where like only 50% of our revenue is coming from home inspections and the other 50% is coming from outside services. So that way, if something happens to us, we at least would have this to rely on to keep ourselves operating and running.
Yeah, and like pest control, bugs don't care about the economy. Termites don't care what the deficit is, or what the interest rates are. They eat 24/7. No, and I'm going back to that. It's crazy. I went the opposite direction. I originally did pest control in that, and I started sort of years ago scaling down the pest control because it didn't have the profit margin that the home inspection did, and I was like, whoa, but now like I came to the same epiphany that you did, that like, wait a minute, I'm so dependent on that real estate transaction that if that goes away, I need to diversify the streams of income here to where, I'm hedged against any kind of market volatility or something like that. So quickly, again, you mentioned earlier, what are the other services you guys are in? And if you don't mind me asking, what percentage of the overall picture are they, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no, sure. So home inspections is our main business. I would say 60% of our business is still home inspections. And then we do structural engineering services, right? So we can help people if they want to do an addition, if they want to do a second story, if they want to simply add on a deck, right? And they're on a hill, all these things need engineering, permits, all that kind of good stuff. So we do all those type of services. And we also do like new construction design on the engineering front as well. That maybe I call it 10% of our business is engineering. And then we have environmental services, which that's environmental consulting, right? So that's mold, that's asbestos, that's lead paint, because we really like the remodeling aspect, right? And we're trying to serve the general contractor. So in our business, like general contractors are just as valuable as realtors, because GCs are not going to go out and get all those services done. They need engineering, they need environmental services because they need someone to come in and test it. They need it fast because time is money, right? So like that's for us becoming our next big, can we take what we've learned about how to serve realtors? Can we take that and serve general contractors? So that's that part of our business. And then like the pest control and the home solutions which we call handyman, that makes up the rest. Which actually, now that I think about that, I'm like, I would say that's actually probably only about 10% of our business. So maybe engineering is a little bit higher at the 15-20%, but regardless, because it does change for us too. Like we have they all have their different seasons as well, right? And we're still trying to grow. So ultimately, the rest of our business is not as developed, of course, because it's newer and it just hasn't grown out as far. But engineering, we've done for 3 years now, and man, that's been tough to kind of get into and learn. Environmental, it's a whole different sales cycle. It's a whole different client. I mean, it's really a different business, and so it's definitely tricky and hard. And we've had to really kind of put our heads into learning how to be, ground up entrepreneurs again. But it's definitely getting there. It just takes time.
Awesome. Well, I have some questions about that, and this may be this question may not be able to answer because there's so many multiple answers to this, but I'll ask it anyway. I'm sure you'll be able to handle it. So obviously, like when you were first starting out and you hired, let me say this, a lot of listeners are struggling with hiring somebody. Nobody can do it as good as they can, and everybody's struggling. I always said like the hardest one was like the first one to hire, but it gets easier, I think. You come up with a process, that sort of thing. So my question to you is now, you interview somebody that they come to work for it's Greenworks, right? Is it Greenworks Home Inspection? How's that process look like from starting out and I'm not sure if Texas is licensed, I think.
Yeah.
How do you get them from, the interview to them being out on their own? What's that process look like? And then a second part of that question is, you have multiple parts. How does that differ from maybe the engineering and the environmental part? And do you have anybody who crosses lines, or do they all just stay in their, the engineering person never goes over to home, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, you're great question. So number one, interview to getting a home inspector out in the field. That has been something we have worked on developing, and we've worked really, really hard on that, because that's the hardest part, right? Home
Right.
inspections is so nuanced, and you all know this very well. Like, it's so nuanced, right? It just takes time. And we are very good about understanding like the way it takes time. And if you take one inspector, and if you're training that inspector for 6 months, for instance, if you lose that inspector, you literally just lost 6 months. I mean, it's gone. You're never going to get that 6 months again, right?
And
So
you will lose some. You will.
it will happen. It will happen regardless. And so number one, getting the training, down to a reasonable amount of time is really one of the biggest things that I think anyone who's really trying to grow a larger inspection company, you have to solve that, because it just can't take 6 months. Even 3 months is really too long in the long run, just depending on how big you want to get your inspection company. But I don't think inspectors should be fearful about, oh, well, my realtors depend on me. They say they'll only use me. They say that. That's not true. They really will use someone else if you've trained them properly and you've really taught them to do a good quality inspection the way that you're doing it. It can be done, right? And I would tell any inspector, where it's an owner inspector, you've got to take new inspectors out with you, so that way you're at least getting higher time value return on your time, because your time is your money, right? So
right.
if I'm Bob and if I'm a one-man show and I want to add 3 inspectors this year, I would tell Bob the first thing. Well, and you asked me, Harmony, what would you advise Bob? I'd say, Bob, you should never, ever, ever be alone in an inspection. Never. Like, why would you ever be alone? Because you're not getting more out of that time. It's just you performing the inspection, but you could have had another inspector with you training, right? And you keep someone always with you training, then you're gonna hit your goals. Like, it's just gonna happen, right? And then here's the beauty: when you get that second and third inspector, they're gonna also be able to take an inspector out with them.
Right.
So now
Right.
you went from 1 to 3. Right? 3 is going to go to 6, 6 is going to go to 12, right? And then you're going to be able to have classes. So then you're going to have one trainer, and one trainer can take 2 guys, right? Like, so it really
you hit critical mass, like you hit a spot there.
Exactly.
I have something that might, just like what you said. So like when I was first starting out and I would train somebody, I mean, I knew I needed to do it, but in my mind, I was like, man, I could do this inspection a lot faster if I wasn't training this person, and a lot of people think that way. But, I thought back to that. I'm a big Robert Kiyosaki fan, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And there's a story in there, and it's told a bunch of different ways, but it's like this town, they need water, and they give the contract to these 2 people. And, one person, like, they go down to the river or whatever, and they bring buckets back to the town. The other person disappears for a while, and you don't even see them. And the one person who's, getting the buckets and bringing the water, they have a monopoly on the market for a long time. But this other person goes, and all of a sudden they get plans, and they get an engineer, and they start working on a pipeline, and it takes forever, to get this thing. But then once they get that pipeline built, they can get water more faster, efficiently, and cheaper. And then the other person who was hauling buckets, they start getting their whole family, their kids, everybody to try, but they cannot compete. So the moral of this story was, I thought back to myself when you said nobody should be alone. I could be out here, alone, and I could do this faster, but I'd be hauling buckets. And if I'm having somebody here and training them, I'm building a pipeline. So I'm like always thinking, are you hauling buckets? Or are you building a pipeline? And even today, and I'm guilty of hauling buckets a lot. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hijack.
No, that's great. You're spot on. You are spot on. And obviously where it's going to end, and if you think it through, that's another thing too. I feel like sometimes we all get stuck in the day-to-day of exactly running the business. but it's
Right.
that forward thinking that will help you work backwards. I'm a huge believer in work backwards, work backwards. Like you got to picture your business with 10 inspectors. What is that going to look like? Are you going to be out there? If you are, that's fine, you can, but then you're going to have a really good office manager / general manager. Like someone's gonna have to run and operate the business if you want to continue to do inspections, like thinking that out, or saying, no, I actually do want to come out of the field and I want to just manage the inspectors and I want to be able to manage the growth team and the operations. Okay, that's great. You can definitely do that, but how would it look? And it's hard to do. I struggle with having the discipline to do it myself, right? It's thinking about, if this year went perfectly correct, what does the finished year look like if everything that I wanted happened? Because
Right.
if I don't have that in place, like if I don't know where I'm going, I don't know where I'm heading, I'm just kind of taking it day to day and just kind of going by feel, it really doesn't let me get the right people in place that I need. And then I end up working twice as hard, right? And getting, I feel like, a 2x less result. That's how I feel about it. So
No, I love it. I mean, yeah, it's like Robert Covey's begin with the end in mind, one of his, 7 habits or whatever. And like to put it on a granular level, I used to tell my wife, anybody who would listen, you remember those mazes that, the little maze that you do? I would always work it backwards. It was so much easier to work it backwards. I was like, all right, here's where I want to go. How do I get there? And I could always, and she's like, you're cheating. And I'm like, there's no rules that says you can't. Where's the rule that says you can't do it backwards?
right. That's right.
And I was like, well, that's kind of the way you're talking about the business. If I want 10 inspectors or 20 inspectors, I want to be in 3 markets. All right, that's where I want to get there. Now let's work it backwards and see, all right, so if I work it backwards, how do we get there? And you're beginning with the end in mind, which is brilliant. I think it's brilliant. I wish I could say I did it all the time. I was guilty of just kind of wondering at times, trying to figure it out. But if I kept the goal in mind, but you've obviously done it fantastic. Now, with that in mind, what's the next year, 5-10 years look like for Greenworks? What's if you're willing to share? I mean, I don't want to ask anything that's too, whatever. What are you working backwards from now, I guess, Harmony?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now we've really gotten focused for like this year on integrating all of these services into one nice practical ecosystem that really makes sense, right? Where a realtor and a client can come in, be a first-time client for whatever service, and we work them through our entire ecosystem to where we're able to serve them on many different levels. It makes it cheaper for them, right? How do we solve it? And how do we make it all make sense and work together very well? So like that's going to take the majority of the year for us to really get that tight, because something that we did to grow our business was we were able to get our home inspectors to also be growth people, right? Like our inspectors are in growth, like they grow their own businesses inside of Greenworks, right? So we got good at that with home inspections, but we've got to get good at that with all the other services too. So that way the inspectors continue to have really unlimited opportunities inside of Greenworks, because that's what we've got to build now. We've got to build it now to where it's like they come here and it really makes sense for them to stay and do their entire career in Greenworks, because essentially they should be able to come in to Greenworks and literally be able to retire inside Greenworks, have their full income, and literally not do another inspection again. I mean, literally, it's like that's what we're building. So that's kind of hard to do, to be honest. Like mastering this idea of you're in, you put in your time, and now you're out, and you're just leading a team from afar because we want to continue to expand. Ultimately, over 10 years, we want to be a national company. We make no, secrets about that. Like we're going into more and more markets eventually when we feel like it's ready and we're time. We just at this second, because we chose to go into so many different companies, that it's amazing how challenging it is to get that many inspectors on the same page, right? Everyone really saying the same things and doing the same things. Just takes a lot of time. And then growing our inspection team, because that's how our inspectors continue to get to lead their own teams, right? And have their own businesses inside Greenworks. And so that's the 10-year, we're a national company, we're in over 50 markets right, throughout the US. And we're having a good time, and at that level with all of our services. But in the 1 to 5 year range, it's really going to be kind of going slow again at first, like I really believe in that. Like set that foundation. If we get that foundation right and we really master it, like that 6 years again, I mean, we're at that stage again. We're doing our 6 years again.
You're incubating.
Yep. And then once we have it, we'll be able just to kind of take off from there.
Yeah, well, and you begin with the end in mind or work it backwards. Another analogy that I like, or what do you call metaphor, I guess. I like to think of it because even though you're working it backwards, it's still not perfect, and I mean, you're still figuring it out, but you know where you want to go. I always say it's kind of like a GPS. It's like you punch in the address where you want to go, but sometimes you have to do a course correction, or I mean, I didn't get there the way that I thought I would get there, or I had to take a detour and I had to go around this way and there was a traffic jam and blah, 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 blah. But we still got there, So I think kind of your business is like that. Like, you begin with the end in mind, and under ideal situations, we would take the interstate all the way to that exit and get off right there. But reality is there's going to be traffic jams. There's going to be an accident. There's going to be, but just like a GPS, you get off on the side road, it still will reroute you. I hope I'm killing you with the metaphors. I know you're probably like, golly, man, you got a story for everything.
No, you're absolutely right. You're spot on. I mean, like like for instance, like in our business, like we're incredibly inspector driven. Like it's an inspector driven business, and that's our lighthouse. Like we don't ever lose that. So like if we have a service idea, like we tried to do a business, I'll tell you something we completely failed out. We tried to go into backflow services. Backflow services are really easy. They're good money makers. Like you can go in, you can do these quick tests. They're required by the city, so people have to do them, and you're in and out. And we thought, oh, this would be a great business. Turns out that service, it doesn't serve home inspectors. It doesn't make sense for the realtor. It doesn't make sense for my home inspector. We failed at it. We had to shut that up. We had to shut that down. We got in and out of that within a year and a half. It was terrible. We wasted a lot of money, wasted a lot of time, and we learned from that failure. And what we learned from that failure was
course correction
that doesn't serve the home inspector, we're not good at.
Yeah, you got off your course, so you had to do a course correction. I love it. All right, well, Harmony, you have given lots of gold nuggets, and I want to be respectful of your time. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so this is a little bit more kind of fun, to try to mix it up. All right, I'm going to do this or that, and then you pick one of the two, and then a couple of questions. All right, football or basketball?
Basketball.
Christmas Vacation or Elf?
Christmas Vacation.
Dog or cat?
Dog.
Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
Phone call or text?
Text.
You're younger. Yeah, there's a line. It's like everybody over this age is phone call. Everybody under this age. Would you rather do cardio or lift weights?
Cardio.
iOS or Android?
Sorry?
Apple or Android?
Oh, Apple.
Apple. That's about, well, I'd say it's about 60-40 Apple. I'm an Android man. I'm the PC holdout. But my whole family's Apple. Then they think they always tell me I got a bad phone. In fact, they've made fun, like I guess it shows up on a color, like in, well, I mean, ironic green where it's like, oh, they got green text. I'm like, I got green text. What's wrong with me? Would you rather have a big party or a small gathering?
Small gathering.
All right. Beach or mountains?
Ooh, mountains.
Flip-flops or tennis shoes?
Flip-flops.
Most important in a partner or an employee, intelligent or funny?
Intelligent.
Intelligent. Gotcha. And the most important this or that, toilet paper, over or under, mullet or a beard?
Over.
That's about 90%. Although I did have one or two people tell me they do under because they have cats, and if it's over, the cat will.
Oh, okay. That's why people do that.
Yeah, I know. I've actually heard inspectors say they change it. They'll go on and like, I fixed that, and I'm like, don't be messing with people's stuff. All right. All right, this is a song. This is a game that my wife and I used to play in the car all the time, where we'd play a song and you get a point for either knowing the name of the song or the lyrics or the person singing. So I'm going to do the same thing. Hopefully you can hear it because I got a new computer here and I don't know how it is. But all right, so I'll play just a little bit of it. You blend in with so many other ordinary things, and people tend to pass you over because you're not standing out like flashy sparkles on the water or stars in the sky. There's a reason. I know you're like, what?
Man, I don't know it.
But green is the color of spring. Yeah, I'll give you a little hint.
Okay.
This person sang it, and so did Kermit the Frog. It isn't easy being.
What? It isn't easy being.
Think about Kermit. Color. It isn't easy being green. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I was trying to think of something with Greenworks that I didn't know whether to go with Kermit or Ray Charles. That was Ray Charles. But
Okay.
yeah, it isn't easy being green. So I immediately, when I saw Greenworks, I was like, it isn't easy being green. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Now, just one or two more lightning round questions, and then I'll let you go because I know you got stuff to do. Craziest thing you've ever come across or heard of one of your folks come across on a home inspection? And remember, it's a G-rated show. I told iTunes. Or I always say craziest, weirdest, or just funny. You know, everybody's got a crazy story of something they found or came across. What comes to mind?
I know you're like G-rated, huh? Or I mean, it's yeah.
If not, it's all right. Just change the names of the guilty to protect the guilty, I guess.
Right, man. Oh my gosh. I mean, from secret rooms that you didn't know were there, you know, like you literally think you're just, whatever, you happen to touch a wall and it opens up into, this completely secret.
That's where they keep the steel.
Right. You're like, where do the ducks go? And you find there's a really
hiding from the revenues.
Yeah, and those are fun because that seems to be becoming more popular. So there's those kinds of things. I'll keep it G-rated, and
Yeah, well, yeah, well, those other rooms, yeah,
those other rooms,
popularized by that movies.
That one
having to do
movie.
with gray, shades of gray. I'm like. I always told my wife, if that dude was not rich, you would think he's a weirdo. The only reason y'all like that is because the dude's rich.
He's rich.
If he was poor, you would be like, he needs to be arrested.
Yeah. That's right. Proof of what money gets you. Yeah. So that's that. And then let me see. You want to know? I'm trying to think of something more specific. I mean,
and I apologize to put you on the spot. I mean, in the old days, I sent this out ahead of time. People had time to think about it, but.
No, because I mean, I used to go to all the inspections, right? And so like we would run into so much. I mean, like wild animals. Oh, the exotic animals. Oh, let's get started. Like people now, you can be at a home inspection right now and there can be a wild pig in the backyard. Like it's like it's like a little dog, like collar, just like hanging out, you're like, what in the world? Or ostriches, like things that you're just like completely not expecting. We've had the large turtles, like the huge ones. I'm like, is that
yeah.
Turtle, like
there's got to be some sort of rule against that, like a zoning thing or something. Yeah. Like that thing in New York City, was somebody's apartment. It was like a crocodile or a tiger. I'm like,
yes, like in the, you're like, and just walking around free. Like it's not like they're put away. And the reptiles, I mean, that gets our guys every time, right? We're like the snakes. Like people are okay with their snakes being all over the house. And so you have an inspector just, hey, do an inspection normally. And then all of a sudden some giant snake comes out of nowhere. And what?
A python or a boa constrictor or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Like that's nuts. That's terrifying, honestly. And then we have to leave the inspection. And because it got the seller's home. Please put this away. Please put this away.
I remember when I went to camp in the summer, and you know, you have like your camp counselor or whatever, you know, you're like 12 and the camp counselor is like 16 or 17. He's like an older kid. He had a pet boa constrictor or python, one of those, you know, and he had it, and it was like in a aquarium. And then one morning we wake up, it's not in the aquarium anymore. And we're all like, I'm afraid to move. I'm like, oh God.
We're about to die. We're about to die.
Yeah, I still don't like snakes, man. I know I crawl under there, and I'm just like, think of something pleasant. Think of something pleasant.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, last question, Harmony. This is the question I always ask. If this is a hypothetical, if you woke up tomorrow morning and a parallel universe, you still had like your company, all your resources that you have, but for whatever reason, you had to start over, and you had $5,000. How would you get your name out there? How would you market it? And I know room and board, computers, all that taken care of. Basically, it's an ROI question, I guess. You know, what would you get the most bang with $5,000 to get your name out there?
Just getting the name out there, or getting realtors and clients, because they're a little different to me.
Oh, okay. No, I guess getting realtors and clients, because ultimately that's the most important thing.
Yeah. First thing, so number one thing, I believe, I'm a huge believer in like doing like bootstrap and like getting as much as you can get on very little money. You know, spend as little as possible. So I'd spend the time training my inspectors, like getting them like whatever, like shirts, business cards, whatever. Like I'd have to spend money on that. But at the end of the day, if I can teach them how to speak to their clients, to get their clients to refer them, like word of mouth is going to be my answer. If I got $5,000, we're going to focus hardcore on word of mouth. Can we get your client to go to work tomorrow and talk about the inspection that happened and how great you were? And so when someone else is buying a house, because it happens more than people realize, right? Or at church or in their community, like on their Facebook of their neighborhood, can we get them to talk about you? And how do we get that to happen? So that's one word of mouth angle that we would try to go for. And then the realtor themselves, of course, right? No one sells the inspection better than the inspector. I've always said that. I've always believed that. And I think I'm right. And so if the realtor believes in the home inspector, likes the home inspector, and is willing to obviously use us again, that's a win. That's going to be the fastest way that I can grow the business. So I'm going to spend $5,000 on taking my inspectors out to lunch. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like I'm going to equip them with like, what do they need to be able to like, have the flyers that they need and stuff. And then we're going to spend time doing the training, because I'm going to use word of mouth. I know that like, there's not going to be any other higher return on investment for me than inspectors that actually know how to get people to like them, use them, talk about them, share them.
Awesome. I'm going to press you just a little bit further on that. I promise no gotcha questions, but I'm curious for my own. Any tips, like for somebody like me or somebody else who own, a multi-inspector company, next time that I have my inspector meeting, I hear what you're saying about getting them to basically create a wow factor, because then that creates word of mouth. And I'm just curious, like if I'm addressing my folks in the next meeting, any tips you have for me to help them create that wow factor, or to create that word of mouth? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but any takeaways I could do right away? Low hanging fruit, I guess. You have any tips?
No, for sure. I mean, I would definitely say like low hanging fruit is number one, inspectors having intentionality around it. Like I'm being honest, like most home inspectors don't really have intentionality around when they perform a home inspection. Are they going in with the mindset that, this realtor is going to use me and this client's going to refer me to a friend, family member, someone that they know to do their next inspection? You got to teach the mindset first, because if you don't, again, I'm always about that. Like if they believe that that's going to happen, people feel you, like you, right? Like you emit a belief system around yourself, right? And people are like, if you're confident and you know that you do a great service, why would someone not refer you? Like, why would they not use you again? Why not? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, people don't spend time and effort and energy trying to find a new mechanic for their car every week, right? Like, if you find a good mechanic, you just keep going to the same mechanic because it's a hassle and we have better things to do with our life. Well, it's the same thing with home inspections. It's like, nobody wants to keep finding good home inspectors. They have a good home inspector, they're just going to keep using that same good home inspector. So if you can teach the mindset and focus on the mindset and get away from always teaching them necessarily the techniques, if they have belief systems around, yes, I'm good, and yes, I genuinely believe that 50% of everyone who meets me is going to refer me. Like, my inspectors who believe that, it's always true. It always happens. Like, every single one of them. If they believe it, it happens. Right? Because if they don't believe it, why not? You either don't believe your service is good enough, right? Like, you don't believe you're good enough home inspector that people should use you all the time, or you have other belief systems that have told you that for whatever reason, like, people wouldn't think of you and want to say your name or whatever, right? So I address that with my guys. I'm like, hey guys, like, tell me what you think about this. And I go through a series of questions, right? Like, well, why this and why that, and like, how this and how that, like, and to get them to see where they are. And then once we figure out where they actually are, then we start poking holes at it, right? So like, if you're like, well, I'm a chubby guy. Like, I mean, I literally had inspectors like, I'm a chubby guy. I just don't think people
love chubby guys.
What are you talking about?
There's a whole chubby chasers. Hadn't you heard it? No, I'm just kidding. No, but actually, honestly, I think people like people with flaws better. Nobody likes Ken and Barbie because they were always the people in high school that were. Everybody, I like people with flaws. I think everybody does. But sorry, I didn't mean to answer that for you. But everybody likes people. But thank you for telling me that, because I'm trying to figure out. So when I look at my own, we have good reviews, all that, but then I look on ISN, the percentage of people use this one time, and that will drive you crazy. Now, granted, I know some agents are, pick 3 or whatever, there's a certain amount of that. And there's a certain amount of people who just got their license and sold one house to their friend, you get a certain amount of that. But like you said, if you get a good mechanic and they did a good job, why would you? That's where you're going to go next time. I mean, because it's just easy, so I'm trying to figure out where. I feel like there's certainly room for improvement for us, because it costs a lot of money, time, and effort to get them to use you that first time. It doesn't cost as much to get them to use you the second time. You just have to do a great job and have some sort of belief system. I hope I'm not like putting words in your mouth or anything, but that's what I'm getting. Well, awesome, Harmony. Well, we're closing in on an hour here, and I know your time's valuable. For all the listeners out there, if you got value from Harmony, and you did, let's go give her some love, some likes and stuff on her Facebook and all that. It'll probably help her algorithm a little bit. And I'm hoping if we're real nice, maybe she'll give us an email or something where if you had a question, you could follow up with her. So first, Harmony, what are all the Instagram, Facebook, website that they can go and hopefully give you some love, some follows, some likes or something like that? And is there an email they could follow up with?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are willing to, like us on Facebook, we are, Facebook / Greenworks Texas. Would love to have y'all there with us. We're also on Instagram at Greenworks Texas as well. My personal email, I'd love to hear from y'all. You want to ask me questions. I got a lot of friends that I love to share with, and I learn and you learn, and we can help each other. It's my email. It's just my first name, Harmony. So just normal spelling, HARMONY at Greenworks with an S inspections.com.
Awesome. So, Harmony at greenworksinspection.com. And for everybody driving right now, you can play it again. Don't try to write it down. And go home. And the Facebook and Instagram, it's Greenworks Texas. Is that correct?
Greenworks Texas. Yes, that's right.
Awesome. Well, go give her some likes, nice comments. My tech people tell me all that stuff helps the algorithm. I think it does. I'm just taking their advice, but the more interaction, the better. Well, Harmony, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure I will see you at a conference soon, and we'll have to do this in person with a beverage.
Yes, absolutely. Please.
Well, if I can get to Harmony for all the listeners out there, she'll have like a whole bunch of people wanting to get her time. But maybe I'll catch you in the gym or something when nobody else. Well, thank you so much, Harmony. I appreciate, and we'll catch you at the next conference.
Okay, sounds good. Thank y'all.
Let me hit the thing here.